several movie roles and a Broadway appearance in David Mamet's Speed the Plough.
I know what you are, you see, that's what I'm telling you.
I'm frightened.
I know that you are.
In the Australian play Up for Grabs, rewritten in American at her request, she's Lauren, an art dealer who plans to make a huge profit by selling a Jackson Pollock at an inflated price. She finds 3 competing bidders, but at least 2 demand sexual favours. Madonna in Up for Grabs, directed by Lawrence Boswell. Miranda Sawyer, she obviously greatly wants to be a stage actress, is she?
Well, no, she's not. She's acted off the stage, but it doesn't mean it's a kind of unentertaining evening. I actually thought for a kind of terrible play with a wooden performance by the central actress, it was actually much better than I thought it was going to be. Because I really thought that I was going to arrive there, be cringing all the way through, and you don't. I mean, the best things about it are the set, which is like kind of this futuristic thing that kind of moves around, and Sian Thomas, who plays one of the people who is trying to buy the art. And Madonna is okay, but she's incredibly two-dimensional, surrounded by all these other people who can actually act. I mean, she does well, but you kind of feel that, you know, if Zoe Ball had the part, she would have done as well as Madonna. Do you know what I mean? She's no stage actress, I'm afraid.
John Kerry, the thing I thought was most revealing was that the performance I saw, the strongest reaction from the audience was when any line in her script contradicted our public image of her. So if she said, "I need some money," or "I'm not sexually very adventurous," there'd be this great whoop from the audience who appeared to take all this as irony, which is not really what acting is supposed to be about, and that seemed to be the problem.
It made it a very curious evening in the theatre, didn't it? I mean, the play seemed to be forgotten. The audience was very strange, bellowing with pleasure whenever she said anything, so that she seemed to be apart from the rest of the actors. I mean, it just dropped into the play occasionally. She seemed to be very wooden. She seemed to, the delivery was very flat. She couldn't make you believe the things she had to make you believe. She had to make you believe she was young, she was penniless, she loved mooching around the Met looking at great art, and she didn't make you believe any of those things. So it actually took the heart out of the play. But it had been a different play. Miranda said it's a bad play. It's not a very good play, but it would have been a much better play with a vulnerable young person who could act that part. She couldn't act it.
Bonnie, there is the courage in what she's doing. It struck me many times. We saw for this programme her last concert tour, and we were about 2 miles back, and you saw her on screens mainly. And there is an astonishing intimacy here that you're watching one of the most famous women in the world, if not the most, and you are very, very close to her. It's a huge gamble she's taking.
Well, two things happened for me that I didn't expect to happen. One was that I liked her. She has an incredible vulnerability, the kind of vulnerability that Marilyn Monroe sort of had. And I found myself sitting there thinking, I'd love to see her in a Willie Minge play, doing Bus Stop or something like that. She's very, very vulnerable. The other thing is that I've never seen anyone on stage before who had no stage presence. I mean, some people have bad stage presence, or she has none. And it was fascinating because this is the most, if not, as you said, the most famous woman in the world. How is it possible that there's this incredible sort of void around her? And I think it has got to go down to the fact that Madonna, and I'm putting it now for the rest of my life anyway, in quotes, is an act. And so an act can't actually act. And I think her director let her down. I mean, Boswell used to be a very interesting director on The Fringe, and now he's the director of The Stars. And he should have actually taken that vulnerability that's there, which is beautiful and quite touching, and helped her through that performance. She does have a possibility to be on stage, but she's not going to be able to do it unless she lets go of this persona that she's created, that we've bought, and we have bought it. What fascinated me is what's driving this person to want to actually get up there to do this, because it is incredibly
and
revealing.
Also you can see her panicking, can't you? I mean, there's one point where
well, that's the vulnerability. That's why I found it uneasy, because the vulnerability is fear, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a point that she has to have an argument with her husband, and she threw her book down, and it missed, obviously, where it was meant to go. It was meant to land on top of the table. It fell to the floor, and you could see her just go, like oh no, this is really terrible.
Didn't you think the direction of the play was bad, not only in relation to her? It seemed to me it was a much better play, really, than it seemed to be, because if you think of the art export Dawn, who talks about her wasted life, how she's not got any opinions, she's all second-hand, that's actually quite a tragic part. It was just played for laughs. She was a funny spinster. And if you think of the lesbian, Mindy, the same thing. She had quite a touching part.
But I'll tell you something very odd about that play. It's an Australian play, and I read it in the Australian version. And what it's partly about is how Australia is becoming more like America, and now she's transferred it to America. It becomes a play about how America is becoming more like America.
Well, surely the sense of humour is not... I mean, the sense of
interesting.
humour is terrible. I mean, it's pretty insulting to be asked to
But
laugh.
you know, the
at
mistake that
stuff.
civilians make about the theater, and Madonna is a civilian, she's an amateur, is that people think you go on stage and you pretend, that you put on makeup and you shout and you scream, you go up there to hide. Actually, you hide in real life. On the stage, you're real. And what we saw was a real human being up there, a very fragile, a very fragile human being, and she was exposed in that sense.
No matter. I mean, that's what I found the interesting thing, because it tells you something about a lot about the rock business, doesn't it? That you realise how much is production, how much is how far we are away from it.
Yeah, I mean, and what is actually quite interesting is if you look at her videos, Norton, we saw a few just before, she's really good at acting within her videos, and sometimes I've seen a couple of film parts where she's actually quite good. She's quite good in Desperately Seeking Susan, she's good in Evita, and it's because she knows how to work a camera, she knows how to do that kind of acting, but within the stage, she's just
because the
lost.
stage is the most naked place you can possibly be.
And she hasn't got the technical ability
This is
to
an
keep it
example of
going.
it. It's naked.
It's also a remarkable paradox, a bad evening in the theatre, but we wouldn't have not been there for anything, which
Exactly.
is the odd thing about it. But Up for Grabs continues at the Wyndhams Theatre in London. You'll have to marry Madonna, though, or queue for returns to get a ticket.